Go. All right. Good morning. August 23rd, 2022. Welcome. I am Kevin Griffin, and this is the ongoing gathering. Doesn't really have a name. Sometimes talk about it as Dharma and Recovery. I've been, we'll start up in a few minutes. We'll have a meditation, but I'm finishing off my tea. So I've been a couple times recently, I get kind of thrown back on the starting point of what I do, like Buddhism and the 12 steps. And there'll be maybe an invitation to teach something on that, or some question about, well, what is that? And why do you bring them together? And, it's always interesting and helpful, and sometimes challenging for me to kind of go back to the origin of this work, and to think about why we do this, because I'm not exactly an addiction professional. I'm not a drug and alcohol counselor or therapist, and not a researcher, other than a researcher into my own mind. But it's kind of like my accumulated experience led me to do this. I was practicing Buddhist meditation before I got sober, as many of you know, and when I got sober, I was pleased to see that the 12 steps included the word meditation in the 11th step. But then I was quickly disabused of the notion that people were actually meditating in AA or the other 12-step meetings I went to. This was 1985, and meditation was still something of a countercultural thing. And so I was talking to my friends early in recovery, in my first few years of recovery, about how they should meditate more. And we started a meditation meeting, a men's meeting in Venice Beach, California, where I got sober, and where we meditated for 20 minutes, which was like a huge, upgrade from the 5 minutes at the 11th step meeting. I remember going to this 11th step meeting, and they meditated for 5 minutes and then spent the rest of the meeting talking about how hard that was to meditate for 5 minutes. So I sort of knew, I have something that could be helpful for these people. But of course, I didn't really have the wherewithal. I wasn't a Dharma teacher. I wasn't a writer. And, but it was apparent to me that what I had, that my experience, not so much even about, I'm going to give it to people, but rather that people should get this, right? Like, I'm going to tell people about Buddhism, and as far as sort of taking my own role in that came much later. But, that was very apparent to me. But then as I, worked my program for over then a longer period of time, as I was getting up to 6 and 7 years sober, then I started to sort of question the steps more intellectually. And that was when I started to think about Buddhism, the Dharma per se, not just meditation, but Buddhism as a partner or a lens for working with the 12 steps. And then, of course, that process of understanding what that would mean, took me, almost a decade to really develop the ideas. Anyway, there's more I can say about that, because that connection is then becomes the heart of a lot of my teaching outside of the meditation. but I don't know. I just thought I would share that because it's, as I say, kind of been coming up in a couple. I'm going to be teaching at a treatment center in October for their alumni, because I sort of try not to. I don't try not to, but I haven't found much value in my going to treatment centers and working with the newcomers in treatment centers. It's not really my strength, but I'm excited to work with the alumni, and I'll probably present them something along those lines. So that's just a kind of opening remarks, shall we say? And we will meditate now for 20 minutes. And I'm actually going to read from my book, A Burning Desire, today on the topic of right effort, which is kind of where we've gotten to in the book as we've been working through it over the past months. So settling into your posture, whatever it might be, sitting up, lying down, standing, walking, 4 traditional postures for meditation. Of course, sitting, excuse me, sitting is the most common, but not the, not required. I'm going to break out a cough drop. Okay, you can close your eyes. Or if you're more comfortable with your eyes open, just lowering your gaze. And working first with the body, with not just the posture, but relaxing the body, letting the body relax. There are a few things we can do intentionally, like releasing the jaw. You might try just wiggling your jaw a little bit to make sure it's not tight. Letting the shoulders go. Just notice if you're hunching at all or gripping the shoulders. Letting the belly be soft. This is and just a sense of letting go through the body. I often find that when I sit down to meditate, or even when I just stop for a moment in the course of the day, that there is this kind of tightness or tension in the body. And I like to think of it as just draining out as I exhale, draining into the earth all the tension. You can also feel this as an energetic experience. The body is a field of energy, field of sensations. As we tune in to the more subtle experiences, you can feel streams of sensation or energy moving through the body. Like, I should say, you might feel those. There's different ways we perceive the body as we start to meditate on sensation. It's very interesting because we typically make assumptions about the body, about sensations. And as the mind settles a little bit or shifts its view into a kind of exploration, you can find that a lot of those assumptions don't really hold up. One of the attitudes of mindfulness is curiosity, an open-minded investigation. Putting aside our assumptions and our beliefs, our standard views of things. Just asking these very innocent questions. What do I feel? What is happening? What is this? And it's not that we're looking for a specific answer or really any answer at all, but rather we're trying to prompt our mind, prompt our attention to look in a particular way, a way that's not so conditioned by our memories and our conventional ways of understanding things. And using the breath as a anchor, as a calming and focusing device. You can focus on the sensations of breath, the touch at the nostrils, or the movement in the chest or belly. You can try different degrees of closeness to the breath. So you could Try to feel the precise sensations at a certain point, like the tip of the nose or the upper lip. Or you might have a broader awareness of just the body breathing, that rhythm the Buddha talks about, being aware of whether the breath is long or short. Just noticing those very broad and general elements of the breath, the length of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. So it's useful to have these different approaches and to see what's most useful at a given moment. Sometimes it's more helpful to get in very close. Other times, better to just keep a broader experience of the breath moving in the body. The breath can also be used as a gateway to insight. Just being aware of how the breath is impermanent. Each breath has a lifespan, a beginning, middle, and end, pointing to the impermanence of all things. We can see how the breath points to interconnection, how we are not separate from the oxygen that we breathe. We take in the oxygen, take in the breath, use what we can and dispel what we cannot use. What part of the breath is me and what is not me? Is the breath mine? Is the air mine? We see that these concepts break down under close examination of the relationship between the breath and the self, the so-called self. We are just like a single cell of a larger organism or a single atom connected to everything around us. our usual functional perspective as a separate being. But it's not difficult to see that this is only one way of understanding our life. Just watching the breath. So I don't often sort of go into insight teachings in the middle of a guided meditation, but it's really an important part of practice, and it somehow it sort of got me thinking and kind of connected to what I was saying before about my first connection of Buddhism with 12 steps was just through meditation, and to see that, like, meditating and getting calm and peaceful, as precious as that is really just a first stage of Buddhist practice, and these broader insights are really what we're trying to build to. So I think it's interesting to bring in these kind of reflections or contemplations in a meditation, in a period of meditation. And of course, we have to be careful with that so that it doesn't turn into rumination, where we're just thinking about something and like wandering off and philosophical, drifting. But to just kind of drop in this idea, the breath is impermanent. Each breath just is the end of each breath is the end of something. And just to remind yourself, that constant cycle is constant movement. But then I also really appreciate this idea of our interconnection that points to that not self teaching. When I breathe in, that oxygen that I'm breathing in, that air I'm breathing in, becomes me. And then when I breathe it out, it's not me anymore. And so you think, well, how can it really be me for just a couple seconds, and then it's not me? Then that really calls into question, of course, what me is, what I am, or who I am. So, it's not to get too wrapped up in that, but just to kind of really take it in, to fully believe that, because that, when we can really let go on that level of attachment to I, that is really where the freedom comes. And the process of letting go starts in this somewhat, it's not mechanical, but just sort of intentional way, and just sort of like bringing in these ideas and letting them kind of rest in the mind, and calling upon them at times. So, as I said, I'm going to read from A Burning Desire today. This is my book, my second book, the one that's on higher power. And so the part of the book where I kind of have been exploring, I haven't covered everything in here necessarily, but it's called The Higher Power of the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is the Buddha's instructions really on how to find freedom, how to become enlightened. And it's like these different elements. And so the fact that it's the Eightfold Path that carries us along with this development of insight that the Buddha talks about, points to its power. It has this power to transform us. And so we want to develop the different aspects of the Eightfold Path. And so the one that I'm on today is right effort. And if you happen to be reading along, I'm on page 95 of Burning Desire. And it just says effort. A little tagline at the top. Right effort activates the power of karma, merging the power of will with the power of letting go. creates the possibility of change, and when combined with right intention, moves us toward freedom and happiness. So I think that point about right intention is really important because it's sort of starting to make the point that effort as just an aggressive or an assertive energy isn't what we're talking about here. It has to be something that's underpinned with wisdom, that's guided by wisdom. Right effort is one power that seems connected to will, not to God. If effort is about me trying to do something, then where is a higher power in that? In one sutta, the Buddha describes the effort he made to come to awakening. He is asked how he, quote, crossed the flood, a metaphor for overcoming greed, hatred, and delusion, and arriving at the safety of nirvana. The Buddha says, by not halting, friend, and by not straining, I crossed the flood. Then he's asked how that worked. When I came to a standstill, friend, then I sank. But when I struggled, then I got swept away. It is in this way, friend, that by not halting and by not straining, I crossed the flood. Anyone who has sat down to meditate with a lot of determination and said, I'm going to watch my breath and I'm not going to be distracted at all, nothing's going to stop me, knows the futility of straining. The mind wanders. That's just what it does. The heart grasps at pleasure, pushes away pain. That's what it does. If, on the other hand, you've taken the attitude, I'll just sit and let it all happen, you know the futility of halting, of doing nothing. The mind drifts. You fall asleep. Boredom sets in, restlessness. In the same way, if we come to recovery with the attitude, I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to make myself stay sober, we often burn out and fall back into addiction, yes. But if we think that we don't need to do anything, just let it all happen, there's probably not going to be enough energy to deal with the cravings when they arise. This shows the central paradox of effort in meditation and in recovery. If we try too hard, we simply wind up being swept away by the violence of our own effort. If we don't try hard enough, we sink under the weight of our own ego and craving mind. What's needed then is balance, what is sometimes called effortless effort. This is where right effort connects with higher power. When we make a steady, non-straining effort, we come into harmony with effort itself, with the power of effort. We start to work with this force and begin to be carried. It doesn't work if we don't show up, if we halt, and it doesn't work if we try to control the process, if we strain. As with all the aspects of higher power, we have to work with the effort, do our part, and let go. In the 12-step tradition, we emphasize showing up. In many ways, I see this as the key to recovery and spiritual growth, consistency. But showing up isn't just something we do with our bodies alone. We also have to show up with our awareness and our energy. And we could say just with our minds. Right effort isn't a prescription. You can't simply say, do this and don't do that, because each moment is unique and calls for its own effort. Jack Kornfield tells how, as a new monk, he complained to Ajahn Chah about that his instructions were inconsistent, that he didn't give people the same answers to questions. It's as though I see people walking down a road I know well, he told Jack. I look up and see someone about to fall in a ditch on the right-hand side of the road, or get off on a sidetrack on the right, so I call out to him, go left, go left. Similarly, if I see someone about to go off on a sidetrack to the left, or to fall into the left-hand ditch, I call out, go right, go right. All of practice is simply developing a balance of mind, not clinging, unselfishness. Ditches appear in all kinds of ways in all kinds of places. The fundamentalist approach to religion is to say that there is only one answer. This provides people with a sense of safety in a frightening world. They don't have to figure out for themselves what's right and wrong, or what to do in a particular situation. But unfortunately, this approach overlooks the complexities of the world of life. The mindful approach requires that we be attentive, mindful in each situation, and that we develop and use discriminating wisdom to address life's challenges. Over time, our mindfulness and wisdom grow, and we become more skilled at dealing with the difficult situations that we face. We come more into harmony with the power of right effort. There's a little bit more, but I feel like that's enough for now. The very first time I was asked to give a Dharma talk, I took the topic of right effort. And I realized that before I knew anything, really, before I could say anything about Buddhism, with any kind of authority, could teach anything, I understood right effort because my practice early on was just meditation practice. I didn't really understand, I couldn't encapsulate the Dharma or what exactly mindfulness was, or, and the Eightfold Path, or, those things were all kind of vague in my mind. When I heard a talk about them, I would understand them, but I couldn't sort of summarize them within myself. But right effort was the thing that I worked on from the start of my practice, and that I almost put that as the central teaching, and that was a very narrow understanding, limited understanding, because Buddhism is a lot more than effort, and meditation is a lot more than effort. However, it is the thing that we come back to over and over. And I've said this to people before, that most of the questions that I get about meditation boil down to being questions about effort. When people say, I keep falling asleep, what should I do? It's about how to effort. I'm having pain in my knee, what should I do? It's about effort. I can't concentrate, my mind keeps wandering, it's about effort. And so it does become, it is a really, really interesting thing to, and perennial topic to explore. And what it comes down to, not surprisingly, is being mindful of effort. And this is why the mindfulness is considered to be really the crux of the Eightfold Path. All the 7 other elements of the path really depend upon mindfulness for them to manifest as right. You can make effort, but for your effort to be right effort, it has to be joined with mindfulness. You can have a good intention, but for it to be a right intention, it needs to be joined with mindfulness. Concentration, the same. You can be concentrated, but for it to be right concentration, it has to be joined with mindfulness. So this is what I recommend to people as they're trying to figure out what is right effort, is to bring mindfulness to the quality of their effort. So as I was talking about in that piece, the first thing that we have to sort out is what's the quality or the energetic quality of our effort. Is it an effort that's like a real wanting? Then it's got caught up in striving, in self, in ego. If it's an if it's a lackadaisical, if it's just like, oh, just let it all go, then, it's the opposite. Not something that's going to really manifest in any kind of helpful way. And it's not as if we, dial our effort to a certain number and then just, okay, let it run. Like you turn on the oven and set it to 450 and just let it heat up. With the effort, we need to be tracking effort moment by moment, because you sit down to meditate, typically, right? You sit down, okay, I'm going to meditate now. All right, there's a certain kind of engagement you need when you first start to sit, right? It's maybe a little bit more, okay, what's going on? Let me do some specific things. Like, as when I guide a meditation, I usually take people through kind of a series of intentional things. And so that's a kind of very clear efforting, step-by-step kind of efforting. But then as things start to calm, then you kind of pull back. Because if you're step-by-stepping the whole time, it becomes very mechanical, and you start to feel that, oh, this doesn't feel natural. I'm not in a flow here. I'm just sort of doing these mechanical things that the teacher said or that I read I should do. Oh, how can I let go of that? So that was a really critical part of my own development as a meditator, was to stop doing these step-by-step and mechanical things in my meditation, which early on was very much the noting practice, noting, thinking, wanting, remembering, just all the sort of noting everything in my mind, and that became very mechanical. So I needed to be able to stop, and then, so this is like a shift in effort, right? Now I'm not doing this mechanical thing. Now I'm trying to pull back a little bit. Okay, this gets more subtle and a little bit more tricky, right? Okay. And it can feel like a flow, but I got to watch it in this flow, because as I'm in this flow and things are calming down, there can be this, oh, now I'm drifting off, right? Oh, I need to bring some energy back into my body. Oh, how do I do that? Well, take some breaths, open my eyes maybe for a minute, sit up straighter. Okay, good. But maybe I'm just sleepy, Maybe I just keep falling asleep. So maybe at some point I just go, okay, well, that's what's happening right now. Because, we will catch ourselves, going, oh, damn, got to stop falling asleep. This is really annoying. I really wanted to have a good meditation this morning, and, I'm not getting anywhere. And all of a sudden you find, right, oh, there's this other kind of efforting, and it's a judgmental efforting, right? And it's like a frustration efforting. And then you've got this inner conflict going on. It's like, well, that's not helpful at all. Oh, okay, I need to let go. So again, this is like the higher power part, right? There are things that can be going on in your mind or in your body that you simply can't change through your effort. And you have to let go. Okay, well, what am I going to let go of? I think this is a critical question, because at that moment you might say, oh, well, maybe this is a waste of time this morning. I won't bother to meditate because it's not working. So that's too much letting go, right? But if you say, okay, I'm just going to sit here, and even though I'm falling asleep and I'm not really enjoying it, or I'm feeling really restless and I can't seem to calm down, I'm just going to sit with it. So I'm just going to go back to the very basic effort, the first stage of effort, which is sit. That's the starting point of effort, just sit, right? And I've talked about this a lot. In a lot of ways, that's the thing that will carry you through all the ups and downs. So you start to see that effort and the results are not always things that you can really be controlling. And so, okay, what at what level can I be operating? So, as I say, sometimes you'll be operating on this very systematic level. Okay, step by step, or I'm doing loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. And you're kind of going through these things. Great. But then there's this letting go space where you try to move into more of a natural flow, or just a flow, open awareness. Great. And that's where there's much more letting go, right? But then that letting go, as I said, can lead to like loss of control. And then it's like, oh, what do I do? Oh, should I assert more control? And you see, wow, like what's going on is that there are two things operating here. There's, and this is exactly what this piece I just wrote is about. There is effort, right effort, and then there is God, if you will. And God sometimes wants me to fall asleep, or God wants me to be restless. And it's, of course, it's not God or some being. It's just reality. It's just energy. It's just the things that I can't control, that I have to turn over. And so our practice in meditation has got this subtle relationship going on that we're always working with. What can I do right now? What do I need to let go of? Am I straining? Am I halting? And where is that middle point? Where can I find that balance point? And where can I just let go of trying to find a balance point? Do I need to just let go of that? So it really becomes then this question, which I've been asking for about 40 years. What is it that allows our meditation to unfold in the most beneficial way? What is the key component? And that's where I talk about, some of you have heard me talk about this idea of time, stillness, and silence as being the three components that I've come to believe are really the foundation of meditation practice. That if you sit still for a period of time, and you keep extending those periods of time of sitting still, in other words, if you go on a silent meditation retreat, certain things will just naturally unfold. Now, that's not the whole of meditation, as my guided meditation this morning points to. There's also this whole contemplative side and insight side. But in order to get to that side, for that to be effective, we need to get the calm. We need to develop the calm and clarity, the foundation of meditation. And I confess to being very, very focused on that side of meditation. And I think if I have any shortcomings, which I do, as a practitioner, it's perhaps taking those qualities of calm and insight and turning them more toward calm and clarity. I mean, turning them more toward insight. Because as an addict, and I'm guessing some of you might relate to this, when I find this comfortable space in meditation, I'm kind of like, okay, that's good. I'm good with that. I'm not powerfully motivated to go beyond that, which, we do our best in this lifetime. But I also think that the transformation, the transformative insight also is something, is similar in a way to what I'm talking about with the stillness, silence, and time, in that it's more about sustained practice than it is about doing something like, okay, now focus your insight on who am I, or just notice impermanence, that there are these systematic ways to work toward insight, but I think they have the same limitations as the systematic ways of developing concentration and mindfulness, in that they can only take you so far. That the real insights, just like the awakening to our addiction, to our powerlessness, or the moment of clarity, it's not something that you can sort of do systematically. Like, I'm going to teach you, like if I could teach somebody how to want to get sober, or to see themselves as needing to be in recovery, of course I would be a multi-billionaire, because it's like an incredibly valuable thing that we can't, that nobody's really been able to figure out, like, how do you get people to that stage of transformation. So it's, yeah, you can take people through things, put them into treatment, educate them, work on the steps or whatever, but for the actual change to happen, it's more of a intuitive, organic process than something that can be mechanically or systematically cultivated and developed. So I hope those connections make sense. They make sense in my mind. There might have been a couple of jumps there that I made, that I did. Hope you came along with me on those jumps. Just about out of time. Didn't actually. So, but let me just open it up to see if there's any comments or questions this morning. And Monica is putting in the information about Donna, about making donations to me. So thank you. And I will also mention that I'm going to be on the road. I will be teaching a public talk in Asheville, North Carolina on September 5th, Labor Day. That's on my website. And I will also be in Minneapolis at Common Ground on September 24th and 25th, doing a couple of a day long and a half day. So if you're interested, I hope you can show up. Love to see people live. So oh yeah, Julie, hi. I see your hand up there.
Thank you. Thank you for a beautiful offering. It was, really relevant for me, as your offerings always are. I've just found I tend to, I've been an active, more like an active efforter. And I'm finding that, and this is super challenging for me, but instead of actively trying to tighten the lute strings to be exactly right, I try to let go of that which blocks what it is I aspire to. So
Yeah.
instead of saying, how can I open my heart?
Yeah.
It's what is blocking me from being warm hearted, and to kind of drop.
Mm-hmm.
The effort is more about dropping that,
Right.
clearing away what isn't the horse so that I get the sculpture of the horse, right?
Yeah.
It's about chipping away that which is not horse in order
Yeah.
to get horse. So I've been trying to orient my practice toward that. So anyway, thank you for your.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie. That's a good comment, and it's very much how I think of practice as well. We know that the heart of the Buddha's message is about letting go. And so even though part of right effort is cultivating always has this risk of grasping in it. And because, we're a culture of acquisition and of power and of control, then I think we're even more susceptible to that. Whereas letting go, yeah, just makes sense. And I do think it's easier to kind of look at, oh, where's the tension here? Can I release, rather than I got to bring in something that's not there, because the negative stuff is there, and so it's easy to find it. Like, right, like, oh, okay, there's that. Okay, I can let go of that. Whereas, like, the love that I'm supposed to have, where is that? It's out there somewhere. I have to go grab it and bring it in here. Like, well, maybe. And our friend from the UK, it looks on the screen like it says Jadavi.
That's right. Yeah, that's pretty good. Shadavi. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
chosen heart name. Yeah. I'm fairly new to formal Buddhism. Much like you, I meditated a lot of my life, sort of secular meditation. And then the 12 steps in their insistence for a higher power sort of pushed me towards Buddhism. And then I got interested in Buddhism for its own sake. And that's actually overtaken I'm trying to balance them together, which is why I'm so delighted to have found your work, because it's really helping. But my question is around what you said about the mindfulness of breathing, and noting being mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
And the only Buddhist tradition in the town where I am, which is Norwich, UK, is Triratna. So I'm following that, and I'm very happy with that. But I don't know if you know much about their tradition, but the mindfulness of breathing is one of the three, like, really big deal important ones, which they teach with equal importance as the Metta Bhavana and just sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been involved with them for about 18 months, and I'm drawn more and more to just sitting, which is very similar, I think, to the sort of thing you were saying. But I just wondered what you thought about that, because the way you were talking about it, it was very much like you were talking about it as if it was just an introductory phase, and then you're going to get beyond that. I think this is what you're going for.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry if it came across quite like that. I think that's so. So mindfulness of breathing and applying effort in a systematic way. I think a better way to think of it is that we call upon the different approaches when needed. So there are many times when things are stirred up for me, where I really need to apply a systematic approach. And mindful breathing, is the kind of primary thing that the Buddha taught, that's been carried on as central to the tradition. And it can be done actually in both the ways that we're talking about. It can be done in a very systematic way. People count the breaths, or you pay attention to the beginning of the breath, the middle of the breath, the end of the breath, and you kind of track it, and you get very close and feel the sensations at the nostrils. But it can also be done in more of a fluid way that I'm talking about. That is just kind of feeling how the body is breathing in, like kind of feeling the breath in the larger space of the mind. So in the just sitting practice that you described, there can also be awareness of the breath, but it's just not trying to have a very tight awareness of the breath. Now, I don't want to give the I'm not saying that one is, a better or a more effective approach. It's the quality of effort behind it. So it's not even the system or lack of system that you're using. It's what are you trying to accomplish with that system or lack of system? Is there a grasping in there? And very often, and it's easy, I think, to see how systematic practice is easy to get attached to, and is easy to get caught up in efforting and trying to do it right. Because it's a system, so I'm supposed to do it like this way. But it's very possible to do a systematic practice without that kind of effort. It's just that you have to be mindful of how you are doing that. Am I doing this just like a natural flow of things? Or am I like trying to be right and trying to be, get it properly done? So I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. So lovely to see folks. Michelle, I guess I'm going to see you next Tuesday in Southern Dharma. And Vicky, are you coming to Southern Dharma too? Oh, yeah. Awesome. Party.
So
Party
who
in the
else?
meditation hall. Oh, and Steve is crying because he can't come. And nobody feels sorry for you, Steve. Sorry. Because other people can't come out here when we have retreats out here. So
That's why I'm so blessed. Thank you so much.
you are blessed. I bless you. In nomine Pat. No, wait, I'm not. Sorry. I'm not a
Sustained
priest.
practice.
So as I mentioned, I need to go back and track who is going to be subbing. There's a bunch of times during the month, even when I can be on the road, where I'll be zooming in. So I have to check those out. But our usual friends, none of whom were here today, Anne and Debbie and Walt, will be subbing here and there. I will be doing the Spirit Rock class. It looks like I'm going to be in New York that night, so that'll be 10:15 for me, which I think I can stay up that late. I'm a big boy. Who is coming to Southern Dharma for the week long? Who is coming? I don't know. Just you guys. I think it's just going to be 2 people. No, I presume the usual crowd. I don't see the registration until I get there usually.
Kevin, when is the release of Living Kindness going to be available from Shambhala Press?
You can order it now, and actually I have a discount code I can give people. I have to get, they want me to be marketing now. And actually, they just told me they want to do an audio version of it, so I'm excited to learn that. We should be working on that in October. But if you hang on, I'll say, officially, in my usual, I'll officially close and say, for this next few days, I encourage you to work with effort in your meditation. So that will be today's recommendation, to look at how you're using effort. And so that's the official end.